While Sophie Turner may have called it really weird to lock lips with her former on-screen brother, it's exactly that strange twist of familiarity that has fans buzzing with curiosity, and maybe a little awkward excitement. After all, we watched them grow up as siblings, bonded not just by fictional bloodlines but by the kind of on-set chemistry that only 8 grueling seasons of dragons, betrayal, and battles can forge. But now, Sophie and Kit are taking that chemistry into uncharted, gothic territory, set in a brooding, windswept countryside with mist curling through the trees and secrets hiding behind every creaking floorboard. The Dreadful flips the script on what we thought we knew about this iconic duo. Sophie's character lives in isolation with a shadowy mother-in-law, haunted by silence and routine, until Kit Harington's character comes knocking, quite literally bringing the past to her doorstep. And while that premise alone would be enough to intrigue audiences, the real spark comes from the subtext, from knowing the history behind these two actors and the world they once ruled together. And make no mistake, Sophie and Kit ruled Game of Thrones. While their characters, Sansa Stark and Jon Snow, weren't technically related by blood, remember that whole R+L=J reveal, they were raised as siblings, with the protective big brother energy of Jon juxtaposing Sansa's tragic journey from naive princess to battle-hardened queen. Their interactions were rare but always emotionally charged. Fans clung to those few scenes they shared in later seasons, reading into every hug, every glance, even hoping, at times, for something romantic, until the show firmly put that idea to rest. Now, years later, it's almost like those theories have come back to haunt us, manifesting in the Dreadful, except this time, it's fully intentional. Sophie's honesty about the experience being weird is refreshingly human. Hollywood often glosses over awkwardness in favor of glossy promotion. But here, she leans into it, unafraid to admit what we're all thinking: seeing Sansa and Jon as lovers is going to take some getting used to. Still, that candidness is part of what makes her so beloved. She's not pretending this isn't strange, she's owning it, laughing about it, and moving forward with that same fearless energy that made her one of the standout stars of the biggest television show of the last decade. But beyond the reunion, beyond the cinematic discomfort, The Dreadful represents a powerful full-circle moment for Sophie Turner. The young actress we first met in 2011 has grown into a woman who can carry an entire gothic horror film on her shoulders. This isn't just about the headlines or the chemistry, it's about Sophie stepping into a new era of her career, with Kit by her side not as a brother figure, but as a co-star, an equal, and yes, a love interest, and perhaps no one knows how far she's come better than Kit himself. Their friendship, forged in freezing night shoots and endless green screen battles, has only deepened with time. It's why the awkwardness never quite turns into discomfort, it's tempered by trust. That rare, unspoken trust that only comes from knowing someone has seen your highs, your lows, your exhausted 3 a.m. takes, and your emotional rap day tears. Acting as lovers, for them, was never about lust, it was about connection. And maybe that's why The Dreadful is going to work. Still, let's not pretend the fans aren't having a moment of their own. Twitter exploded the moment the casting news dropped. Memes flooded the timeline, some jokingly asking if George R. R. Martin had ghostwritten the script. Others wondered how Rose Leslie, Kit's wife and their fellow Game of Thrones alum, felt about this on-screen romance. But as always, the fandom is torn between celebration and confusion, unsure if they should be cheering or cringing, and maybe that's exactly where the filmmakers want us. After all, what better way to stir anticipation than with a pairing that feels both so right and so wrong? That tension, that discomfort, it's the very essence of gothic horror. Forbidden love, long-buried secrets, the return of a ghost from the past. Sophie and Kit aren't just playing lovers, they're embodying archetypes, breathing life into an entire genre. For Sophie, the timing couldn't be more symbolic. Her life has been a whirlwind in recent years: marriage, motherhood, and a high-profile divorce from Joe Jonas. Through it all, she's maintained her dignity, her wit, and her openness. She's talked candidly about parenting, about postpartum struggles, about finding herself again after a marriage lived under the spotlight. And in The Dreadful, it feels like all of that personal growth has channeled itself into her character, and the isolated woman waiting for a visitor from her past isn't so different from Sophie herself. She's a mother learning to navigate life on her own, facing emotional ghosts and emerging stronger. It's art imitating life in the most haunting, beautiful way. And then there's Kit, whose own journey hasn't been easy. After Game of Thrones, he openly struggled with mental health, checking into rehab for stress and alcohol issues. He's since spoken about the pressure of fame and the toll it took on him. His return to acting, in roles that challenge him without breaking him, has been deliberate. And The Dreadful seems to be a carefully chosen step in that direction, dark, emotional, yet grounded in intimacy. So when these two walk onto the screen, wrapped in fog and candlelight, there's a weight to their performances. A history. A truth. They're not pretending to be young, wide-eyed nobility anymore. They're scarred, seasoned, haunted, and finally, maybe, freed out of course, the dreadful will invite its share of gossip. That's Hollywood. But if early interviews and teases are anything to go by, Sophie and Kit aren't interested in clickbait. They're telling a story. A strange, eerie, wonderfully awkward story. And they're telling it together, not as relics of a fantasy past, but as actors redefining their futures. Even Sophie's sense of humor, that dry British wit fans adore, has been on full display throughout this press cycle. Her Instagram caption, "After the casting news, we couldn't not hang out again, you know," was the perfect mix of sarcasm and sweetness. She's clearly aware of the reaction, aware of the meme potential, and instead of resisting it, she's embracing it with grace. What comes next for the dreadful remains to be seen. Will it be a critical darling? A cult favorite? A surprise box office hit? One thing's for sure, it will get people talking. The pairing of Sophie Turner and Kit Harington as lovers in a gothic romance is just too intriguing to ignore. It's the kind of casting choice that raises eyebrows, fuels debate, and drives viewers straight to the screen. And isn't that what storytelling is all about? Sophie Turner has always been more than Sansa Stark. But in the dreadful, she's finally getting the chance to prove it on her own terms, raw, bold, unafraid. Paired with Kit Harington, a man who understands her journey perhaps better than anyone else, she's ready to step into the next act of her career. Not as a sister. Not as a queen. But as a leading lady in her own beautifully strange love story.